Hello, everyone. I'm Chef Adrianne Calvo. I'm your new host for Season 2 of the Chef AF podcast here on Foodable Network. There are plenty of hot topics in the culinary scene today, and we plan to cover as many as we possibly can. This one specifically hits close to home, which is women working to make their mark in the restaurant industry. Today, we are taking a deep dive into this topic with none other than the amazing Chef Chloe. Chef, to get some background, please tell us a little bit about your experience in the industry.
Sure. I think my experience in the industry has to start from, where I'm originally from and what led me to this. So I'm originally from Montreal, Canada. When I was 10 years old, however, my family moved to the Caribbean and we lived on a few different islands. So I would say I'm probably more of an island girl than I would be a Canadian. And I sort of fell into cooking. I was a business administration major for university and would work front of house, because it paid the bills and I made great tips, but fell in love with the kitchen. So I'd finish my shift, clock out, and then just go help the guys in the back, guys and girls in the back. Unfortunately, it was mostly guys back then, and it's evolved, luckily, in the last few years. And one day I woke up and realized that business as a major was not what I wanted to do with my life. So I dropped out of college, a little bit to my parents' demise, and signed myself up for culinary school. I was in Miami at the time for university, and I packed my car up, drove up to Canada, and did an intensive 1-year program at École Hôtelière des Laurentides, which is a school on the outskirts of Montreal in a small little ski village. And then I was lucky enough to land an apprenticeship in Dubai with Hilton, where I worked in 3 of their properties at 8 different outlets, so 8 different restaurants, if you want. And it was, the starting point. It was where I fell in love with working internationally for sure. And then at the end of my apprenticeship, I moved to the Maldives, where I worked for Universal Resorts, which is the biggest Maldivian company based. And I did 2 hotels with them, sort of working my way up. So I started off as a chef de cuisine, and I finished off opening a resort for them. Once the resort was up and running, my roots were calling me back to the Caribbean. So I moved to Jamaica, moved back to the Caribbean where my heart was calling me, let's say. And I worked for Sandals, where I helped rebranding some of the restaurant concepts and ran the kitchens for the Sandals Negril property. At the end of that contract, I moved to Sofitel in Singapore, which is a really cool, funky hotel, and helped them sort of revamp their kitchens. Big cities weren't for me, so the Caribbean came calling back, and I think, that's where I'll end up staying for a while. I went to work on the island of Canouan in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where I worked for Sandy Lane Yacht Club and Residences. And now I am here in the British Virgin Islands at the beautiful Scrub Island Resort, running our 3 outlets, soon to be 4. So it's a well-traveled career so far.
Yes, and wow. That story alone, this is really the perfect backdrop to what I want to get into. It seems like at a very, very young age, you had to be determined. What kind of fueled you to be or to make these moves, to go out and go to Dubai, or, if most people will be comfortable with maybe just moving out of state one time, maybe a couple of times, but it seems like you're very well traveled, and you were kind of fearless. And where did that come from?
My parents. Just growing up, I went to 18 different schools growing up. So adjusting to new people and adjusting to new situations is almost my comfort zone. Like when things become too routine, I end up looking for something else, if that makes sense. So from them moving me around so much, it's become second nature. I also had the opportunity to travel a lot. I did my last year of high school on a sailboat, which is the first time I ever worked in a kitchen. So I'd switch shifts from actually doing sail maneuvers to go work in the galley to peel potatoes and do all those boring things, but it was just normal for me, you know? So through that, I got to travel and taste. And I think those two things go hand in hand. Uh, yeah.
Oh, they definitely do. There's always a backstory, and if there's any parents listening out there, raise your girls to be fearless, like Chloe, to not be afraid to like take the road less traveled for sure. And that kind of brings me really to my next question, which is, as a woman in such a male-dominated industry, what are the challenges that you have faced in each of these countries, and kind of let me know if they've been different in any of
Uh,
these countries, or are they, is this
Right.
a universal problem?
It's been different everywhere you go. I think Dubai was definitely, as it was my first real kitchen after graduating culinary school, the biggest challenge. We throughout the three properties that I worked at, we had 175 kitchen staff, and I was an apprentice. I was at the bottom of the totem pole, and out of the 175, we were, I think, five or six females. Yeah. And
Wow.
Dubai is a melting pot, so everyone is from everywhere else, basically, that works in the kitchen. So a lot of Asian nationalities, so Indians, Sri Lankans, Filipinos, Southeast Asians, overall. And that was a shock to me, because I just assumed I was going to Dubai and I was going to work with people from Dubai. And, I was like, oh, people think, oh, Dubai, they're going to have a small mindset about women. And I was welcomed with open arms, but at the same time, I was maybe overly welcomed by nationalities that weren't used to females. So I was like, oh, let me hold that pot for you. Oh, let me do that for you. Oh, let me do that for you.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, to be polite, I sort of let them do things for me. And then I realized, but hold on, I'm not going to know how to do this if I keep letting people do it for me. And one day that's going to become a
Right.
problem. So I know it's a strange struggle, but it was
Yeah.
kind of to say, like, no, I can do it. I can do it just the same way you're doing it. You're going
Yeah.
to lift that heavy pot. I can also lift that heavy pot. Or I just because I'm a girl doesn't mean I can't work in the butcher shop. Like, please let me go work in the butcher shop.
Yeah.
So learning to be polite about it, because people think they're being nice to you when they're doing that, and at the end of the day, it's kind of neglecting your education almost. And we all know that working in a kitchen is about doing it to learn to do it, right? Practice makes perfect. You're never going to know how to do something
Right.
unless you just do it 25,000 times over and over. Um, yeah,
That's
so
very true.
like shucking oysters, for example, that was one where I was like determined to shuck all of the oysters for 500 people that were having an oyster tasting, because they didn't want me to do it, and I was pushing to get it done. And I was lucky enough to have executive chefs and senior chefs at that time that did push me and that did believe in me, and then that did not necessarily.
Were any of them
Unfortunately, I
women?
had no. Unfortunately, no. I've had
Right.
one female chef, a lead to me. She was my pastry chef in Dubai. She's from Myanmar. We called her Mama, Chef Mama. And
Yeah.
Mama pushed me, and she did give me really good advice once, where she was like, you have to work three times harder, but show that you're working half as hard, if that makes sense. As in, don't try and prove yourself, just
Okay.
do it, but don't complain about it. Don't tell people you're doing it, just do it. She was a pastry chef, and she was a badass. Can I say badass? She
Yes, you
was a
can say
badass.
anything you want.
So that's a
Yeah.
strange challenge, I guess. But it's to show people that I appreciate that you're being nice to me about this, but let let me do it. Let me take it over. And then moving to the
Right.
Maldives, which is probably slightly more reserved than Dubai was. And in the Maldives, you live where you work. So you're one island, one hotel, and then all of your restaurants and all of the staff. The guests are on the outside of the island, and we're all kind of confined to the middle of the island. So the challenge there was to to become one with your team and not be left on the outside, because it doesn't work if you're the boss and then they're on the outside, but you have to find a balance to live. So they think that because you're a girl, you're not going to participate in this activity, or you're not going to help with this. And I know that sounds like it's not necessarily related to the kitchen, but because we all lived together and we all, we did breakfast, lunch, dinner together in all of the outlets, it was important to fit in. But then it was
Of
Like, I'm
course.
not going to change who I am just to fit in with them, right? So so it's about getting people to accept you
Right.
for who you are, female, male, whatever, but being in there. And in Dubai, I did face I wasn't the executive chef at that point, but I did face one executive chef that didn't want to give me certain jobs simply because I was female, and not because he didn't believe I could do them, but because he believed that the team wouldn't listen to me. So which in the beginning made
Right.
sense. They didn't include me in the group because I was the female, so they wouldn't
Right.
they wouldn't listen to me if I was giving them direction. So it was about getting yourself included and then proving to him, yes.
Speaking of, that said, what do you think about the gender pay gap? I mean, there's definitely one. Did that affect you in any way? Did you know, was it relevant?
It I have been lucky enough to work for companies that try and keep it across the board. So working for Marriott, Hilton,
Okay.
Sandals, all those big companies have made a conscious
Yeah.
effort to do that. That said, I'm sure I have not gotten
Okay.
certain job offers simply because there, even if the male was asking for more money than I was, simply because he was male. But the gender pay gap luckily hasn't affected me, that, or not that I know of, right? So you're not comparing paychecks, but
Right. That's what I mean. Maybe it's not even relevant. I mean, it is out there. How about like promotions? Have you ever been really like kind of what you just said, head to head with men, or a couple of men for the same position, and it wasn't given to you, even though maybe you had more experience or more to
um,
offer?
yes, I want to say yeah. Again, you never exactly know, but definitely it. I'm sure it has happened. The problem is you never get that feedback. So you'll get back like, oh, you did so good, but unfortunately, this candidate's closer to home. Like no one will tell you
Right.
directly.
Yeah.
So it's been a it's I oh God, I wish I had something better. Because the truth is,
No,
is
no,
you
you're doing
never
great.
really know. So your gut tells you, but you'll never actually have that acceptance,
Right.
right? You'll never. No one's going to come to you and say like, "Well, we picked him because he was a man." But I've definitely just never been. My CV,
But
I've
of course
applied
not.
for positions where my CV was definitely better than the CV of the gentleman that had applied for it. When I saw that he received the job, I just never got the call back. So the question is, why not me? Why not even bother going
Right.
through the interview process? Oh, because you're female. We're
Correct.
not going to interview you.
Correct. Yes, and I mean I've actually been surrounded, and these are modern companies, big companies, who where they're faced with exactly that scenario that you just mentioned. And for example, they'll have a couple of men and they'll have a woman with a great resume, a lot to offer, a lot of experience, and they simply don't even, she won't even get the interview because they assume she has a family that she has to tend to, or and it will take away from her job, her concentration, and all that. They assume that men don't, when men have families just as much.
Completely. And
So that's kind of
I think in abroad, another perspective on that is also they won't listen to her. She's all the guys. It's only
correct,
men in the kitchen. They won't listen to her. She's female, or she
right,
won't be able to lead the team. She won't be from above. Like, oh, I have
right,
no problem with a woman chef, but your staff might have a problem with it.
correct. And it's very true. That still exists to this day in my kitchens. My kitchens are I would say it's probably about 60% men right now. And there's quite a few of the men that are my own employees that I struggle to lead. And my executive chef, who's a woman as well, struggles because, it's just kind of like the male ego.
Hmm.
They don't want to listen. And even if they have to, they find it hard. Like, she's a little girl, she doesn't know enough, or I can do it better, faster, I'm stronger, that type of
Right.
thing.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what advice do you have to share with fellow females in the industry when it comes to planning career trajectory? Anything specific to being part of hotel food service operations, or anything in general? Feel free to share, what advice you
Be
have.
yourself. I think that's the same advice that I would give to male and females in the kitchen, because we have such a stigma of being this like masculine, dominant, like, you don't have time to say please and thank you all the time, and you have to yell and you have to rush and you have all of this.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But if that's not you, it's okay to turn around and say, please, can you pass me that pot? I
Right.
wear makeup to work every day because I'm a girl and I like to wear makeup to work every day.
Right. I wonder where that came from. No makeup, no nails. I mean, why? We don't have to look like men.
Exactly. That's the thing. And we don't have to
Yeah.
act like men either. We have to act like ourselves.
Either.
And I think,
Correct.
as a leader, your team sees through you pretending to be somebody else. Don't, be
Absolutely.
yourself. And I think that comes across. I think you get better accepted for being a female or being you and being genuine, as opposed to putting on a persona and trying to act like with quote unquote one of the guys. You know what I mean? So just be yourself and people will accept you better, I think, is the advice I'd give.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Chef Chloe St-Cyr. You are even more amazing than I thought. Thanks for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. It was a pleasure talking to you again.
Thanks for listening in today. Make sure to subscribe to your favorite podcast app and leave a review on iTunes. We love the feedback. If you have an idea for the show, make sure to send it to producer@foodabletv.com. Also, if you like this show, you will love some of our other podcasts. Just search Foodable Network on iTunes to get access to all the amazing culinary content.